Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 3 now, tips, tricks, and traps of film photography. So, recently I went to the Analog Spotlight event, and it was a fantastic event. It was here in the UK. It was great. It was in this little sort of like back street studios. It's perfect for the slightly underground analog scene, because let's be honest, it's in real terms it's tiny. It's tiny. All of the main movers and shakers, I think, within the UK industry turned up there, and yeah, you could fit all of them into a large house. So it's like, and talking of large houses, when I'm watching the video, I am in a large house, but it's not my house. I am house sitting today, and dog sitting. So, but this just happens to be a very nice quiet room. The dining room happens to be nice and quiet. So, what I want to talk about is minutia, though, and it's something that it's a trap that all of us film photographers are likely to fall into. So we focus these days, we effectively pixel peep everything about film photography because we get obsessed with it, and then we want the best. We've been conditioned by modern society to want the best of things. A lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us. Now, my wallet will never stretch to having the best of things. It just won't. So it's an arms race that I cannot afford to get into. That doesn't stop me being drawn to things, So on the table in front of me, I've got two cameras that I absolutely love. Okay, they are both cheap cameras. They have good lenses, but in the world of analog photography, no one is going to give a monkey's chuff about these two cameras, really. At the Voigtlander Vito B, you can pick these up for £20, maybe up to a maximum of about 50 quid, I suppose. It's a lovely little camera. It's really well engineered, lovely little camera, and it produces, and here's the thing, perfectly acceptable results. Okay. Zeiss Icon Netar, one of the cheaper. The Netar is, I believe, the cheaper of the range of cameras. It's got a, I'm going to go geeky now, but I am reading this, a Nova and a Stigma lens. Well, I know for a fact that's nothing special. Very sharp in the middle, edge sharpness, maybe not so good. But I don't care. I don't care, because you've got to think, we've been ruined by the digital age, because now we click a phone, we click our phones, not mine because it's a super cheap phone, but if you've got a high-end phone, you click a picture on your phone and it takes this image, and then the algorithm-y stuff inside does all this stuff with it, and then you can pinch and zoom and you go, oh my god, that's such a good picture. Such a good picture. And you want that from something that's 70 years old. And you get incredible pictures out of these old cameras. But we're judging them all the time by modern standards. And if you go with modern mirrorless DSLRs, we're in danger of judging them by modern standards. And you go with a modern mirrorless camera up to the minute, and I don't have one, but I know people that do. Permanent eye tracking, permanent eye focus, just insane levels of image capturing range, if you like, between dark and light, and the values it can capture are insane. 40 megapixels burst rate of frankly terrifying numbers. I mean, who the hell wants to hold their finger on a shutter button and end up with 120 pictures when they've had their finger on the button for a second? That's a reality. Who wants to edit that? It's just mental. And then there's even a camera that I cannot get my head around. I think it might be a Nikon. I'm not sure. But before you've even pressed the button, before you've even pressed the shutter, it's recording. It's firing shots. It's like does about a second's worth or half a second or something before you've even pressed the shutter button. I can't get my head around that. Now, if you're a sports photographer or something for a newspaper, an online magazine, because it's all going to be online now, maybe that's important. But we're in danger of sort of looking at that level of tech, not specifically those things, but that level of tech that we have now, we just almost take for granted, and then translating it onto these cameras, which both of these cameras I've mentioned, if you had these when they were new, they would have been, well, the Vito B would have been a very expensive camera, I think. The Netar, again, it would be regarded as a fairly high-end camera, but this is the more budget version, if you like. Now, they were family snapshot cameras in a time when people weren't stupid and people knew how to use a camera like this. They would read a manual and they would learn, and they would go, okay, so it's it's an f5.6 day. I would do that, and if I change my shutter speed, then I can get it up to f8, get a bit more in focus. Lovely, great, and they really. These were for getting photos of Uncle Albert and stuff like that, and record, there he is, there's Uncle Albert in the deck chair, when they look back on it in 10 years' time and Uncle Albert's dead, that's what it was all about. They didn't give a flying thing about corner to corner sharpness, or how does this lens render the scene, or how does this lens render the colours. Nobody cared, but we do, and I think you're missing a point. One thing, and from the analog spotlight, they had a photo walk. Okay, now I didn't go on a photo walk. I'm not I did think about going on a photo walk, but I'm not a huge fan of group shoot photography. But I was sort of thinking before I went, I might challenge myself to do that and go on the walk, but no, actually, because there were people there that I wanted to go and talk to, and I thought, well, when the walk's gone out, everything will get a bit quieter, so I can stand at a stall and I can ask questions and I can talk to someone and I can buy some stuff. Better use of my time. But what I noticed, this will make me unpopular, I think, which wouldn't be a change. But what I noticed, there's an awful lot of peacocking. And it did make me giggle. So there's people hanging boutique cameras around their neck. They've all brought their best camera. Well, probably not all of them, but there's a lot of it going on. And so you see someone, and they're sort of preening. Before the photo walk went out, it took about, I think it took about 25 minutes for the photo walk to gather at the front of the building and then go on the walk. I think that took quite an excessive amount of time. But I think photography folks are a bit like cats in that respect. Getting them to do things en masse is pretty impossible. But there's these people, and they've got their camera, and they're sort of like, and they want someone to talk to them about their camera. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what it leads to is there'll obviously be someone that's brought their best camera, and realistically, it'd be someone like me. You know, my best camera would be of zero interest to the vast majority of film shooters. They just go, and they might go, oh yeah, no, I like those. Oh yeah, I've got a couple of those. Yeah, and that would be it. You know, they would go, oh my god, look at that, that's amazing. It's got these such and such lens and blah blah blah. And, wow, I bet the pictures are amazing. So if you're a bit like me, and you're more at the budget end of things, and so take heart from the fact that the camera is just a light type box. Don't worry about the minutiae. Don't worry about whether or not it's worth X amount of money, or whether or not this celebrity's got one, or whatever it might be. Do not even think about that. Because here's the rub. You could give a plastic point and shoot to a good photographer, a very good photographer, and their images with a plastic point and shoot would be far better than someone with a really expensive Leica. I'm just going to say that as an example, because everyone knows Leica, expensive, has a reputation, you know. Because the camera doesn't take the photo. The camera doesn't create the photo. The person behind it creates the photo. Their vision creates the image. Now, obviously, their understanding of how the camera works has an impact in that. But would you rather be on the side of the person that's got a cheap camera? Would you rather be the person, that has the cheap camera and gets really good results because they work at their craft and they use the art of it? Or would you rather be the person that's got the really expensive camera, and when people see their images they go, that's nice. I think I'd rather be on the cheap side and have people go, that's an amazing image. Now, I'm not saying I'm there yet. But that's where I want to be. Quite happily, in terms of camera collecting, somewhere at the bottom. You know, if I could afford to, let's say I could afford to buy a Leica, one Leica, and then it developed a fault, or I had to get it fixed somewhere. Well, for the cost of that one Leica, I could have 10 perfectly functional other cameras. And I could have a variety of different things. So, I'm not a huge camera collector. I mean, in the sense we've all got gas, right? You know, we've all got gas, but I'm not a huge camera collector. So don't worry about what camera you've got or what cameras you have, and don't get caught up in, I must get a better camera, I must get this particular camera, because the camera does nothing. You're the important bit. You, your vision, your learning, your knowledge, your ability. You can take the most average photos in the world with the best camera in the world, the best lens. Not that I truly think there is such a thing. So, enjoy working on the art of photography and worry less about the minutiae and the details. Thanks for listening.